Hi, this is Simon Amstel and welcome to another tutorial for Apple Motion, and today I want to show you how to make this stylized, colourful, glowing logo reveal. So, quite simple, quite stylish, quite a lot of fun to do. Let's get going. So, for this project, let's go with 1920 1080, frame rate of 25 frames a second and a duration of 5 seconds. Let's first of all come over and bring in our logo, Apple logo. Loads of examples of this you can find online. The key thing here is that it's a solid white with alpha channel. So if we look at the alpha channel or the alpha overlay, you can see that it's got transparency, and that is important. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to make a clone of this logo. So right click, make clone layer, and we are going to add a stroke to it. I'm just going to turn off the original. Filters, border, stroke. So for the stroke, let's have white, and let's turn on hide source. And I just want to do a fade on the outside, so 50% there. Okay, so that's our logo sorted out. I'm just going to drag that out to a new group here. I'll just turn off the original logo. So the next thing I want to address is the mechanics of the light sweep. So I'm going to make a new group, right click to make a new group. Let's turn off both of these groups actually while we work. And in this group, I'm going to add a line, hold down the Shift key, draw out a line like that. So let's center it up. Let's come over to the geometry. Let's set the point 2, which is the bottom point, to 0 on Y, and the first point to 1080. Let's come over to style. Let's make sure it's white. And let's choose 100 for the width. We will be animating this width later on, but let's leave it at that for now. So having done that, let's make a replicator out of this line. So object replicate. Let's choose circle for the shape and outline for the arrangement. We want 3 points. We want to turn on align angle, and we need to set the radius to 1. So then what I'm going to do is make these 3 bars a different color. And I'm going to do that by coming down here to color mode and selecting over pattern. So I'm going to select this one here. I'm going to make it fully red, 100% red. I'm going to click in the middle, actually no, click around here, 30%-ish. I'm going to come back and fix that later on and make that fully green. And I'm going to select this one and drag it to around 60% and make that fully blue. And just to be super tidy, let's select this one and make that constant. Let's select this one and also make that constant. And then let's select the green and set its position to exactly 33.33. And this one to exactly 66.66. I mean, this is slightly over elaborate, but just wanted to show you some tricks you can do with the over pattern here on the replicator. One more thing I need to do is to come back into my line and add a Gaussian blur to it. So blur and Gaussian blur, and I'm going to have an amount of 64, and you see that softens off those edges there. Right, so the next thing we want to do is to turn back on this group here, the one with the outlined logo in it, and let's make a clone of that. So right click, make clone layer, and that's made a new group, so let's bring that out to the top. Let's turn off our replicator and let's turn off this other group. So what we're going to do with this clone is we're going to right click and add an image mask, and we're going to use the replicator as the source. So drag the replicator into there. And instead of using alpha, we're going to use red. Then we're going to copy this clone. So right click, duplicate, come to the image mask, and instead of red, we'll select green. And let's duplicate it one more time. And for the image mask, let's select blue. So that's quite a useful way of using one source to create 3 different masks. So that's why we set them up as 100% red, green, and blue. So now what we can do is give these different elements some color. So I'm going to come to filter and stylize and fill. I'm just going to pick a color that I've pre-selected there. Let's copy that fill onto the next clone up. So that's option dragging it. Let's set it to a different color. Let's copy that onto the top clone, option dragging it, obviously. Let's select the color and change it. So now we've got these three different colors. So if we then come back to our replicator and animate it, or animate its rotation, you can see we get that nice color cycling around the edges there. So let's reset that and let's make sure we're at our first frame, and let's keyframe the rotation, set the value to 270. Let's come forward to frame 80 and set that value to 0. Let's open up the keyframe editor, so we can right click here, show in keyframe editor, and we want to select that last point, and let's just choose ease in, and that'll smooth it in like that. So it'll go much faster at the beginning and then ease into its final position. Close up the keyframe editor. So we have lots more animation to do, but first of all, let's just give this some glow. So to this group here, the one with all the clones in it, let's come to filters and glow and neon. And let's set the outer glow value to 128. Let's duplicate that neon, right click duplicate. In this case, let's set the outer glow value to 256. And I'm going to set that mix value to 5% for now, and then I'm going to duplicate it one more time, right click duplicate, set the outer glow value to 512 and the mix value to 15. So we've got this nice rich glow happening like that, all makes it look pretty nice. Let's actually just keyframe this middle one here. So to do that, let's come to frame 45 and hit a keyframe for that mix value. Let's come forward to frame 50 and set that mix value up to 55. Let's come forward to frame 75 and set that value back down to 20. So that's going to give us a bit of a sort of exaggerated glow just as we're doing our transition into the logo. And talking about the logo, let's come back to the original group down here and let's duplicate the Apple logo, or we could clone it. Actually, let's clone it. Make clone layer, and let's drag it all the way up to the top here. So what we need to do is we need to fade this on. Let's come to frame 50, hit a keyframe for the opacity and set it to 0. Let's come forward to frame 70 and set that up to 100%. So now it's going to fade on like that. Okay, so what else do we need to do? We need to animate our line. So let's come to the original line, this one here, and shape and width. Let's come to the first frame. Let's keyframe it and set that width value down to 0. Let's come forward to frame 16 and set that value back up to 100. Let's come forward to frame 35 and hit another keyframe. Let's come forward to frame 45 and set that value up to 450. You can see that almost completely fills in the outline. And finally, let's come forward to frame 80 and set it down to 0. And so now if you run it, we're going to get a little bit more of the overall effect like that. What I do want to do is I want to ease these keyframes. So let's show in keyframe editor and Command A to select all the points, and let's right click and ease both. And so now our finished animation looks like this. So finally, the one thing that I didn't do was to set this up to be procedural in such a way that we could swap out that logo and everything else would update. So let's just sort that out now. So let's call this group here Source, the one with the Apple logo in it. The one above, let's call this Outline, because that's the one with the stroke in it. Let's tidy this up and call this group here with the replicator in it Masks. We can close that down. These are the glows in group 3 here. Close that down. And what we need to do is we need to replace this clone layer here in the outline group with this source group. But we first need to turn on the logo inside it. So replace that Apple logo there with the source. And then again, this clone here at the top, which is also the logo, replace that with the source. Now, if I add something different into this source group, I'm just going to quickly add some text. So I've added in some text. Let's just turn off the Apple logo. You'll see that we now get the effect applied to whatever we put into this source group, which is quite handy. You might decide, depending on the design of your logo, that actually you want to mask off some of the effect. So let's try that. Let's take the replicator and let's select the circular mask. Let's maybe just mask off the middle like that. So that's quite interesting. We've just got it in the middle like that. So then if we keyframe the mask at, say, 150 at the first frame, come forward to frame 50, which I think is where it's sort of doing its major thing, set that radius up to something like 1440, and then it will sort of expand out like that. As I say, it's all going to depend on what your logo actually looks like. So you might need to use some strategically placed and animated masks to get exactly the look you want. So anyway, I hope that's been fun. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.